Give me $200,000 or you're dead to this family. My sister said that. Not a stranger, not a debt collector. My older sister Megan, 3 days after I made the mistake of sharing good news with the people I thought loved me. By Sunday dinner, there were 7 people at that table. One of them was my lawyer. One was the pastor my mother invited to guilt me into compliance. And by the time we got to dessert, the person crying wasn't me. It was Megan. But she wasn't crying about money. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story genuinely speaks to you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're all watching from. I'm Thea. I'm 31. I'm an accountant from a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. Now let me take you back to a Tuesday evening in March, the night I picked up the phone and made the worst call of my life. I don't play the lottery. I want that on the record. I'm the kind of person who tracks every dollar in a spreadsheet and brings lunch to work in Tupperware. But that Tuesday, I stopped to fill up my tank at a speedway outside Westerville, and there was a Mega Millions sign on the counter, $2. I thought, why not? 4 days later, I'm sitting in my apartment staring at my phone screen, checking the numbers for the 3rd time. Then the 4th, then the 5th, $1.2 million. After taxes, about $740,000. Still enough to change my life. Enough to finally buy a house. Enough to stop renting. Enough to breathe. And the very first thing I did, before calling a financial advisor, before calling a lawyer, before doing anything a smart person would do, I called my mother. "Mom, you're not going to believe this," she screamed. She screamed. I could hear her pulling the phone away from her ear, shouting into the next room, "Gerald, Thea won the lottery! Thea won the lottery!" And for a moment I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I belonged to them again. Within an hour, Dad called. His voice was warm for the first time in months. "Proud of you, kid." 3 words I'd been chasing my whole life. Within 2 hours, Megan called, sweet as honey. "Oh my God, Thea, I'm so happy for you. We should celebrate. We should do a family dinner." Then she asked a question that seemed harmless at the time. "So, how much was it after taxes?" I told her. Because I trusted her. Because I was still stupid enough to believe that good news could just be good news in this family. For about 2 hours, I felt like I had a family again. That was the most expensive feeling of my life. Wednesday morning, not even 24 hours later. Mom called while I was at my desk at work. Casual voice, the kind she uses when she's about to ask for something but wants you to think it's your idea. "Honey, I've been meaning to tell you, the roof's been leaking again. The estimate came back at about $15,000. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could finally get that fixed?" I said I'd think about it. Thursday, Dad called. No small talk. No "how are you?" Just, "You know what your mother and I sacrificed. I worked double shifts so you could go to college." Here's the thing about that statement. It's not true. My father did work double shifts, but that money went to bills, to Megan's cheerleading gear, to a boat he sold 3 years later at a loss. My college was paid for with federal loans. Loans I'm still paying off at 31, but I didn't say that, not yet. Thursday night. Megan called again. The honey was gone. "Thea, I need $200,000. Todd and I are drowning. The credit cards, the mortgage, it's bad. You have the money. This is what family does." 200,000 out of 740. More than a quarter of everything I had. I told her I needed time to think. "What's there to think about?" I opened my mouth to answer, but she cut me off. "If you say no, don't bother showing up Sunday." She hung up. I sat in my apartment, lights off, phone still in my hand. 3 days ago, I was nobody to these people. I got one check, and suddenly the whole family had a claim on my life. I just didn't know yet how organized that claim was about to get. Friday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't seen in months. Pastor David Patterson from Mom's church. "Thea, your mother reached out to me. She's concerned about you. Generosity is a blessing. I hope you'll pray on this. Call me anytime." So Mom had gone to the church. Of course she had. That's Donna Andrews' playbook. When guilt doesn't work at home, take it public. But that wasn't the worst part. Megan had been busy too. I started getting texts from extended family. People who normally only contacted me at Christmas. Aunt Diane. Hey, sweetie, Megan called. Everything okay? Uncle Bob. Heard there's some tension. Family's everything, Thea. And then, the one that actually made me sit down on the bathroom floor at work. Grandma Ruth, 81 years old. The woman who taught me to bake pies when I was 9. Her text read, I'm disappointed in you, sweetheart. Megan had gotten to her. Megan had called every single person in the family and told her version, the version where I was the villain. I checked my phone again, a notification from Facebook. Megan had posted in our family group, Pray for our family. Some people forget what blood means when money shows up. 14 reactions, 8 comments, all supportive of Megan. Then I thought about something practical, something that made my hands shake. I co-signed Dad's truck loan 2 years ago. If he stopped making payments, my credit score tanks. I can't buy a house with wrecked credit. Mom's savings account, the one I'm listed on as a co-holder from 2019 when she needed help setting it up. She can access that anytime. They had leverage, real leverage, not emotional, financial. That night, I opened my laptop and started doing something I hadn't told anyone about yet. I'm an accountant. Numbers are what I do for a living. But somehow, in all the years I'd been quietly helping my family, I had never once added it all up. I opened a blank spreadsheet that Friday night, pulled up my bank statements going back to 2017, cross-referenced Venmo transfers, wire receipts, canceled checks. It took me 4 hours. March 2019, $30,000 wired to Megan Andrews Cole. She and Todd had separated for the first time. She needed rent, a deposit, groceries, a lawyer consult. I covered all of it. Her exact text at the time, I'll pay you back when I get back on my feet, I swear. I still had the message saved. She never paid back a cent. June 2021, $18,000 for a 2017 Ford F-150. Dad's old truck broke down, and he couldn't get approved for a loan on his own. I bought it outright. When I handed him the keys, he said, We'll figure it out. There was nothing to figure out. He just never brought it up again. That truck is still parked in his driveway. January 2022, $22,000 for Mom's knee surgery. Insurance covered part of it, but not enough. I paid the rest directly to the hospital. When I mentioned it once, she said, That's what daughters do. October 2023, $17,000 in rent for Megan's apartment. She and Todd had separated again. 6 months I covered. She came back to Todd in April 2024 and never mentioned the money. I stared at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $87,000. $87,000. I'd never seen it as one number before. I'd always thought of each one as a separate thing, a favor here, a gift there. But sitting in my apartment at midnight, looking at that total, something shifted in me. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just awake. I spent Saturday morning running the math on what happens if I do nothing. If I give Megan $200,000, I lose more than a quarter of my after-tax winnings. The house I've been saving for disappears. I go back to renting, back to Tupperware lunches, back to watching my bank account like a heart monitor. And Megan learns, for the 5th time, that screaming loud enough works. If I stay silent and refuse, Megan controls the narrative. She's already turned Grandma Ruth. She's already got the church involved. Dad has the truck loan. If he stops paying out of spite, my credit craters. Mom has access to that joint savings account. They can squeeze me without ever raising their voices. But those were the financial calculations. The real math happened at 2:14 p.m. on Saturday, when my phone rang and the screen showed Megan's number. It wasn't Megan. Auntie Thea? A small voice, shaking. Mommy says you don't love us anymore. Is that true? Lily, 7 years old, the kid I take to the zoo every spring, the kid who made me a card last Christmas that said, Best aunt in the world, because she hadn't learned to spell aunt yet. Megan had put her daughter on the phone, or Megan had said those words in front of her daughter knowing she would call. Either way, she used a 7-year-old child as a weapon. Lily, honey, I love you. That will never change. Then why is Mommy crying? I closed my eyes. Something in me shifted past the point of repair. You can take my money. You can call me selfish to every person in this town, but you don't get to use a 7-year-old to break me. That is the line. I picked up the phone, called Rachel Whitfield, my college roommate, family law attorney. Rach, I need your help. Are you free Sunday? Friday night. I was heating up leftover soup when Megan called again. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. Have you thought about it? Her voice was flat, transactional. I have. I'm not giving you 200,000, Megan. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. So that's your answer. That's my answer. More silence. Then her voice dropped into something I recognized. The tone she used when she wanted to make someone feel small. She'd been doing it since we were kids. Fine. Then I'll tell Lily you chose money over her. Don't bring Lily into this. She's already in it. She asked me why her aunt is being selfish. She's 7, Megan. She asked because you told her to. Click. I stared at the dark screen. My soup was boiling over on the stove. I didn't move. 20 minutes later, a text came in. Not from Megan, from Todd. 6 words. I'm sorry about all this. I read it twice. Todd had never texted me directly. Not once in the 7 years he'd been married to my sister. He'd always been background, the guy who loaded the dishwasher at Thanksgiving while Megan held court at the table. The guy who nodded when Megan talked and disappeared into the garage when she didn't. But here he was. 6 words, no context, no follow-up. I almost texted back. Instead, I saved the message and put the phone face down on the counter. I didn't know what Todd's text meant yet. But I filed it away in the same part of my brain where I file things that don't add up. Numbers that seem small at first, but end up mattering more than everything else on the spreadsheet. My soup had burned. I ate cereal instead. Saturday morning, 8:07 a.m. I know the exact time because I was still holding my coffee when Dad's name lit up my screen. Gerald Andrews doesn't call before noon unless someone's dead or he's angry. No one was dead. You will give your sister what she asked for. No hello. No morning, kid. Just a command, delivered in the same voice he used when I was 12 and tracked mud on the carpet. Dad, that's not how this works. I didn't raise you to be this way. You didn't pay for my college, Dad. I did. Silence. The longest silence I'd ever heard from my father. Gerald Andrews always has something to say. He has opinions on everything. Football, politics, how his neighbors mow their lawn. But when I said that sentence, there was nothing. Just the sound of Fox News playing in the background. When he finally spoke, his voice was harder. Sunday dinner. Be there. And bring a better attitude. I'll be there, but I'm bringing something else. He hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and realized I was shaking. Not from fear, from the fact that I had just talked back to my father for the first time in 31 years, and the sky hadn't fallen. The earth didn't crack. I was still here, still breathing, still holding a cup of coffee that was going cold. I called Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. Are you sure about this? She asked. I've never been more sure. Then I'll be there at 4:30. Wear something comfortable. And Thea, don't let them see you sweat. I hung up and opened the spreadsheet one more time. 87,000. I printed it, every page. Then I put it all in a folder and set it by the front door. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. In my experience, moments like these, where your own father tells you that you owe him, those don't come from nowhere. He lost his job 5 years before this. He'd been sitting at home, watching his younger daughter become more financially stable than he ever was. I'm not excusing it, but I understand the wound underneath it. Now here's what I want to ask you. When Megan told me she'd turn Lily against me, do you think she was bluffing? Or do you think she actually would have gone through with it? Tell me in the comments. Let's get back to the story. Saturday afternoon. I needed milk and eggs. Normal things. The kind of errands that remind you the world still exists outside your family drama. I drove to the Kroger on Main. I was loading bags into my trunk when I heard my name. Thea, wait. Todd Cole was standing 2 spots over, holding a gallon of orange juice and a bag of diapers. Wait, not diapers. Pull-ups. For Lily. She'd been potty trained for years, but she still used them at night sometimes. Megan hated talking about it, but I knew because Lily told me once during a zoo trip, whispering like it was a classified secret. Todd looked terrible. Bags under his eyes, 3-day stubble. His Carhartt jacket had a grease stain on the sleeve that I was pretty sure had been there since Christmas. I didn't know about the phone call to Lily, he said. I found out last night. He shifted the juice to his other hand. I told her not to do that. She didn't listen. Then why are you still going along with this, Todd? He looked at the ground. His jaw tightened. Because I've got nowhere else to go. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. Todd Cole, 37, plumber, father, husband, and trapped. Not by love, by logistics. He started walking toward his truck. Then he stopped, turned around. For what it's worth, you've been more than fair to this family. I just wanted you to know someone sees that. He climbed into his truck and pulled out of the lot. I stood there in the Kroger parking lot holding my eggs and thinking about what Todd knew that he wasn't saying. Because that man was carrying something heavier than a gallon of orange juice. He knew exactly how much his wife owed. And it wasn't just to me. Saturday night. I was sitting on my couch with the folder on the coffee table, going through the printouts one more time, when my phone buzzed. Aunt Diane. I braced myself. Megan had called her. This was probably the next wave. Megan called me yesterday, Diane said, told me you're refusing to help the family. Diane, I didn't call to lecture you, sweetheart. I stopped. Diane Andrews is 54. She teaches 4th grade at Millbrook Elementary. She's my father's younger sister, and she's the quietest person in the Andrews family, which means she's either the smartest or the most afraid. I've never been sure which. Your father borrowed $12,000 from me in 2018, she said. Never paid back a cent. When I asked, he stopped returning my calls for 6 months. I didn't know this. In 31 years, no one had ever told me this. I've watched this pattern for years, Thea. You're not the first person Gerald and Donna have done this to. You're just the first one who might actually stand up. My throat tightened. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because he's my brother, and because until now I didn't think anyone would believe me. She paused. I was invited to Sunday dinner. I'll be there. Diane, thank you. Don't thank me yet. She hesitated, long enough for me to hear her take a breath. There's something else, but it's not my place. You'll find out soon enough. She hung up before I could ask what she meant. I sat in the dark for a long time after that call. The folder sat on the table, fat and quiet. Tomorrow it would speak for me. But tonight, for the first time in a week, I didn't feel completely alone. Sunday, 5 o'clock. The sky over the suburbs was that particular shade of gray-orange you only get in central Ohio in March. Like the weather can't decide if it's winter or spring, so it splits the difference and gives you nothing. Rachel pulled into my apartment complex at 4:30 sharp. Black blazer, leather satchel, low heels. She looked like she was walking into a deposition, not a pot roast dinner. You ready? She asked. No, let's go. We took my car. 15-minute drive, past the speedway where I bought the ticket, past Millbrook Elementary where Diane teaches, past the church where Pastor Patterson was probably finishing his Saturday sermon prep. Dad's house is a single-story brick ranch on a quarter-acre lot. White aluminum siding, a basketball hoop from 1998 still bolted above the garage, net gone. The lawn was patchy and brown. Gerald Andrews has never been a yard man. 3 cars already in the driveway. Pastor Patterson's gray Buick, Diane's Subaru, Megan and Todd's minivan, and there, parked right in front, the 2017 Ford F-150 I bought for $18,000. Blue, chrome bumper, mud on the wheel wells. I picked up the folder from the back seat. Rachel grabbed her satchel. Mom opened the front door before we knocked. She was wearing her good blouse, the one with the little flowers she saves for church. Her eyes went straight to Rachel. Who's this? This is Rachel, my friend. She's joining us for dinner. Donna's smile thinned. We didn't set a place for... Then we'll add a chair. I stepped inside. The house smelled like pot roast and potatoes. Fox News murmured from the living room. The dining table was already set. 7 places, carefully arranged. I noticed immediately where they'd put me, directly across from Dad, like a defendant facing a judge. Everyone was already seated when we walked in. Gerald at the head of the table, Megan to his right, mascara freshly applied, chin high. Todd to his left, hands flat on the table, staring at the salt shaker. Diane at the far end, quiet, watching everything. Pastor Patterson sat next to Mom's empty chair, Bible resting on his knee. Someone had set up a folding chair in the corner near the window. For Rachel. Rachel looked at the chair, looked at me, and sat down without a word. She didn't need to be at the table. She just needed to be in the room. Mom brought out the pot roast, set it in the center. Nobody served themselves. Gerald didn't wait. Let's get this over with. Donna sat down and reached for the pastor's arm. Thea, Pastor Patterson is here because we love you. We're worried about you. Patterson cleared his throat. Thea, your mother tells me there's been some tension in the family. Family is God's first gift. Generosity is... Pastor, with respect, were you told the full story? He blinked. Megan didn't give him time to answer. The full story is you won $1 million and won't help your own family. Gerald tapped the table with 2 fingers. Enough. Thea, we're not asking for all of it. Just help your sister. That's what good people do. Donna's eyes were already red. She'd been preparing the tears in advance. I didn't raise you to be cold. I looked around the table. Gerald's jaw was set. Megan's arms were crossed. Donna was dabbing her eyes with a napkin she'd pulled from her lap. Patterson looked uncomfortable. Diane hadn't moved. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I reached down, picked up the folder, and set it on the table between the pot roast and the bread basket. Every eye in the room landed on it. The folder was plain brown, letter-sized, about a 1/4 inch thick. It sat there next to the bread basket like a landmine disguised as a tax return. Before I open this, I said, I have one question. Nobody spoke. The pot roast was steaming. Fox News droned from the other room. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. I looked at Megan. How much do you think you've ever given me? Her eyebrows pulled together. What? In 31 years, how much money have you ever given me? A dollar amount. That's not the point, Thea. It's exactly the point. I turned to Gerald. Dad, same question. How much have you given me financially since I turned 18? He straightened in his chair. The vein in his temple that I've known my whole life, the one that shows up when he's cornered, pulsed once. We gave you a roof. We gave you food. We gave you life. I moved out at 18. I've been paying my own way since then. Loans, rent, everything. Donna's hand went to her chest. You're keeping score? Is that what this is? After everything we've done for you? I looked at my mother, the woman who used to braid my hair before school, who stayed up late making my Halloween costumes when I was little, who once, when I was 8, drove 30 miles to bring my forgotten science project to school. I love her. I want you to know that. I love her even now. No, Mom, I never kept score, but you forced me to count. I opened the folder. The room went silent in a way I'd never experienced in this house. This was a family that filled every second with noise, arguments, football games, opinions about the neighbors. But when those pages came out, the only sound was the creak of paper against paper. The first page was a printout of a bank wire confirmation, dated March 14, 2019, $30,000, sent from my account to Megan Andrews Cole. I read it the way I'd read a financial statement at work. Calm, precise, no emotion. March 2019, $30,000 wired to Megan. Purpose, rent, security deposit, groceries, and a legal consultation during her first separation from Todd. Megan's chin lifted. That was a gift. I pulled the second page, a screenshot of a text message, the date and timestamp clearly visible. Megan's exact text, March 16, 2019. I'll pay you back when I get back on my feet, I swear. You never paid back a cent. Rachel stood from her folding chair, walked over, and placed a copy of the printout in front of Pastor Patterson. He looked at it the way a man looks at a letter he didn't expect to receive. I continued. October 2023, $17,000, 6 months rent for Megan's apartment, her second separation from Todd. Megan's face was changing. The defiance was still there, but something underneath it was shifting. The first crack in the wall. That was different. I was in a bad place. I know you were. And I helped. Your text from that period, here on page 4, reads, I promise I'll make it up to you. You didn't. I set the pages down and looked at Pastor Patterson. He was reading the printout Rachel had given him, glasses low on his nose. He looked up at Donna, then back at the page. I watched his face carefully. This was a man who had walked into this house 40 minutes ago, believing he was there to counsel a selfish daughter. He was now reading proof that the story he'd been told was missing about 60 pages. He didn't say anything yet, but his jaw tightened. I turned to the next section of the folder. June 2021, $18,000. A 2017 Ford F-150 for Gerald Andrews. I looked at my father. He was gripping the edge of the table with both hands. Dad, have you made a single payment back? He didn't answer. The vein in his temple was throbbing again. The truck, his truck, the one he drove to the hardware store, and the barber and the VFW haul every week, was sitting right outside in the driveway. Everyone at the table could see it through the window. I moved to the next page. January 2022, $22,000. Mom's knee surgery. Insurance covered a portion. I paid the remaining balance directly to the hospital. Donna's face crumpled. I'm your mother. That's what children do. Then what do parents do, Mom? No answer. Just the sound of Donna folding and unfolding her napkin. Total across 8 years. I laid the final summary page flat on the table. The number was printed in bold at the bottom. Simple, clean, no commentary. $87,000. That is what this family owes me, not the other way around. I closed the folder, didn't slam it, didn't raise my voice, just pressed the cover shut and set my hands flat on either side of it. Diane spoke first. She'd been silent for the entire dinner, and when her voice came, it cut through the room like cold air through an open door. $87,000, Gerald. She looked at her brother. And you're sitting here demanding more? Gerald's eyes snapped to Diane. For a moment I thought he was going to shout, but he didn't. He just looked at her, his little sister, and for the first time I saw something in my father's face that I'd never seen before. He looked caught. Pastor Patterson took off his glasses, set them on the table next to the printout, rubbed the bridge of his nose. He'd been quiet for the entire reveal. I could feel the room waiting for him, Donna especially. She'd invited him here as her final weapon, the moral authority, the man who could make me feel small enough to open my wallet. Donna. His voice was calm, careful, but firm. When you asked me to come tonight, you told me Thea was being selfish with her money. You didn't tell me any of this. Mom reached for his arm. Pastor, it's more complicated than... It looks pretty clear to me. He turned to face me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't pity or judgment. It was something closer to respect. I owe you an apology, young lady. I came here tonight with incomplete information. That was my mistake, and I'm sorry. Megan slammed her palm on the table. This is private family business. She had no right to bring a lawyer and spreadsheets to a dinner table. I didn't raise my voice. You made it public when you posted on Facebook, Megan. You made it public when Mom called the pastor. I'm just finishing what you started. The room went still. Megan opened her mouth, closed it. Her mascara was running now, 2 thin black lines tracking down her cheeks. Patterson pushed back his chair and stood. He picked up his Bible. I think I've heard enough. Donna, Gerald, I'd encourage you both to reflect on this, deeply. He walked around the table, stopped in front of me, and extended his hand. I shook it. Then he nodded to Rachel, who hadn't said a single word the entire evening. He walked out. The front door clicked shut behind him, and the room exhaled. The pot roast had gone cold. No one had touched the food. The bread basket sat untouched next to the folder like a still life someone would paint and title American Family March. I waited until the sound of Patterson's car engine faded from the driveway. Then I spoke. I'm not asking anyone to pay me back. I'm not here for revenge, but I need everyone at this table to hear what happens next. Gerald's eyes were on the window. Donna was gripping her napkin with both hands. Megan was wiping mascara with the back of her wrist. Todd was staring at the salt shaker again. 1. I'm removing my name from Mom's savings account tomorrow morning. Donna flinched. 2. I'm refinancing the cosign on Dad's truck. If the bank approves it, my name comes off. If not, I'll give you 90 days to find a new co-signer. Gerald didn't move. 3. There will be no more loans, no more gifts disguised as obligations. If anyone in this family needs financial help, we discuss it like adults, not with guilt, not with pastors, not with threats. I paused. Let the silence do the work. And 4. I looked directly at Megan. If you ever use Lily against me again, ever, you won't hear from me. Not because I don't love her, because she deserves better than being someone's weapon. Megan's lower lip trembled, but she didn't speak. Rachel sat in the corner, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't opened her satchel, hadn't produced a single document, hadn't said one word the entire night. She didn't need to. Her presence alone, a lawyer, sitting in the room, hearing everything, was the quietest and heaviest thing at that table. I'm not here because I hate this family. I'm here because this is the last time I sit at a table where loving someone means letting them take from me. Gerald pushed his chair back. The legs scraped against the linoleum, a sound that cut through the silence like a blade. He stood up, didn't look at me, didn't look at Diane, didn't look at anyone. He just walked to the hallway, turned left into the master bedroom, and closed the door. No shouting, no parting shot. Just the quiet click of a door from a man who had run out of arguments and didn't have the vocabulary for anything else. Donna stood and followed him. Gerald. The bedroom door stayed shut. Mom stood in the hallway for a few seconds, hand on the doorknob. Then she turned and went to the kitchen. I heard water running. She was doing the dishes. The pot roast hadn't been served, and she was already doing the dishes. That left 5 of us at the table. Megan was crying openly now. Not the performative tears from earlier. Real ones. Messy. The kind that make your nose run and your voice break. You've ruined this family, she said. And then Todd spoke. No, Megan. She didn't. Every head turned. Todd Cole, the background husband, the nodder, the dishwasher loader, the man who had never once raised his voice in this house, was sitting upright in his chair, and his face was flushed red. We owe $42,000 in credit card debt. You know that. I know that. But you never told your parents, and you wanted Thea to bail us out so they'd never find out. Todd, shut up. No, I'm done shutting up. Megan stared at him. This wasn't a betrayal. This was something worse for her. It was the truth from the one person she assumed would never say it out loud. She looked around the table. Diane, me, Rachel. Nobody was coming to save her. Megan covered her face with both hands and sobbed. She wasn't crying about the money. She was crying because the last secret she had was gone. I want to pause again. I know some of you might be thinking, Thea, Todd just blew up his own marriage at your dinner table. And honestly, I thought the same thing sitting right there. But here's what I realized later. Todd had been watching Megan lie to everyone for years, and he was exhausted. Sometimes people don't explode because of one moment. They explode because of 1,000 moments of silence that came before it. So here's my question. Do you think Todd was right to say that at the table? Or should he have told Megan privately first? Drop your take in the comments. Okay, back to the dinner. Monday morning, 9:15 a.m. I walked into First Federal Credit Union on Broad Street and asked to remove my name from a joint savings account. The teller, a woman named Karen who'd processed my deposits for 6 years, looked at the screen and then at me. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure. It took 20 minutes. When I walked out, the March wind hit my face and I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing. One down. Tuesday, I called the bank about Dad's truck loan, filed the paperwork for a refinance. The loan officer told me the process would take 60 to 90 days. We'll need the primary borrower's cooperation, he said. I told him I understood. Wednesday. Silence from Gerald. Silence from Megan. Thursday. Donna called. I picked up because she's my mother, and some instincts don't die in a week. You've torn this family apart, Thea. I set a boundary, Mom. That's different. She hung up. Friday. A letter arrived. Not an email, not a text. A handwritten letter in a shaky cursive I recognized immediately. Grandma Ruth. Dear Thea, I only heard one side. I'm sorry I judged you. Your grandfather would have been proud of you. Come see me when you're ready. Love, Grandma. I sat at my kitchen table and cried for the first time all week. Not because of the apology, because it meant someone in my family could hear the truth and change their mind. That weekend, Diane called. I want you to know something. Gerald borrowed $8,000 from your grandmother in 2020. She never told anyone. He never paid it back. I closed my eyes. The number didn't surprise me. The pattern did. You're not the only one, Thea. You're just the bravest. 2 weeks after Sunday dinner, Diane told me that Megan and Todd had started marriage counseling. I didn't ask for details. It wasn't my business. But Diane offered one. Todd told the counselor everything. The debt, the phone call with Lily, all of it. I felt something complicated when I heard that. Not satisfaction, not sadness exactly, just the heaviness of knowing that one dinner had cracked open more than I intended. Todd called me once, brief, direct. I should have spoken up years ago. I'm sorry I didn't. You spoke up when it mattered, Todd. He was quiet for a second. Then, Lily misses you. I miss her too. That was the whole conversation. Megan didn't call. Not a text, not an email, not a smoke signal. But 3 weeks after the dinner, something happened that I wasn't expecting. My phone buzzed at 8:42 p.m. on a Thursday. Megan's number. I opened the text and my chest tightened. I miss you, Aunt Thea. Can I come over? Love, Lily. The spelling, the lowercase letters, the fact that aunt was still spelled aunt. This wasn't Megan. This was a 7-year-old who had figured out how to open her mother's phone. I called Rachel. My voice was shaking. Can Megan legally stop me from seeing Lily? Rachel sighed. In Ohio, aunts don't have formal custody or visitation rights. But you're not in a custody dispute. You can reach out through Todd. I texted Todd that night. Simple. Tell Lily I love her. I'll always love her. He wrote back in 2 minutes. She knows. She told me she sent you a text on Megan's phone. Megan doesn't know. A 7-year-old girl sneaking her mother's phone to tell her aunt she missed her. That child knows who actually loves her. Kids always do. Here's the thing about small towns outside Columbus. Everyone goes to the same 3 places: the Kroger, the Speedway, and church. And in a town like ours, information doesn't need the internet. It has casserole drop-offs and post-church parking lot conversations. Pastor Patterson didn't tell anyone the details. He's a man of discretion, and I respect that. But the following Sunday, he gave a sermon. The topic? The sin of using generosity as a weapon. He didn't name anyone. He didn't have to. Donna was sitting in the 3rd pew. By the time Patterson reached his second point, something about how true giving doesn't come with a leash, Donna stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out. Diane told me this later. She said the pew creaked when Mom got up, and nobody looked at her, but everybody watched her leave. In the weeks that followed, the phones started ringing. But this time, they were ringing for me. Uncle Bob called. I didn't know the full picture, Thea. I'm sorry I took sides before I had the facts. 2 cousins texted. One aunt sent a card. Not everyone, not a parade. But enough. Megan quietly deleted her Facebook post. The one about praying for the family. The one with 14 reactions. It just disappeared one afternoon, like it never existed. But screenshots live forever, and I knew at least 3 family members had already seen the original. Gerald still didn't call. Not a word. Donna called Diane twice, but not to apologize. To complain. Thea humiliated us in our own home, she told Diane. Diane said, No, Thea told the truth in your home. That's not the same thing. I didn't ask anyone to take sides. But for the first time in my life, I didn't have to prove I was worth believing. 3 months later, the refinance went through. My name came off Gerald's truck loan. The credit union officer called to confirm, and I said thank you, hung up, and sat in my car in the parking lot for 10 minutes, doing absolutely nothing. It was done. The last financial thread connecting me to my father's decisions was cut. I bought a house. Nothing fancy. A 2-bedroom Cape Cod on Elm Street, with a small yard and a front porch. The kind of house I'd been saving for since I was 23. It needed new gutters, and the kitchen cabinets were from 1987, but it was mine. My name, my mortgage, my front door. I didn't post it on social media, didn't send announcements. The only people who came to the housewarming were Rachel, Diane, and, to my surprise, Todd with Lily. Megan knew. Todd had told her where they were going. She didn't object. Rachel brought wine. Diane brought a potted fern that she said would outlive all of us if you just water it on Sundays. Todd brought a toolbox and tightened the loose handle on my back door without being asked. That's the kind of man Todd is. He fixes things quietly. Lily walked through every room with her hands behind her back, like she was inspecting the place. She stopped in the second bedroom. It was empty, just white walls and carpet and a window that looked out on the backyard. Is this my room for sleepovers? I knelt down. If you want it to be. She hugged me. Hard. The kind of hug that means a kid has been saving it up for weeks. I also set aside $30,000 into a 529 education fund for Lily. Nobody's name on it but mine. No one in the family knows about it yet. Some gifts don't need an audience. 3 months. Gerald Andrews hasn't called his youngest daughter in 3 months. I know he's alive because Diane gives me updates I don't ask for. He mows the lawn. He goes to the VFW on Tuesdays. He watches the Buckeyes on Saturdays. He does everything exactly the way he did before, except he no longer picks up the phone to call me. Donna calls sometimes. Every conversation follows the same pattern. She starts with small talk, the weather, the neighbor's new fence, something she saw in the morning news. Then she slides into it. I just wish things could go back to normal, Thea. And every time I say the same thing. I love you, Mom, but I won't apologize for having boundaries. She sighs. We say goodbye. She doesn't call again for a week or two. I'm not waiting for an apology. I've made peace with the possibility that one may never come, but I'm also not closing the door. The door is right there. It's unlocked. They know where I live, literally, because it's a small town, and Diane told Donna my new address. They just have to walk through it without a demand in their hands. Diane told me something last week that I keep turning over in my mind. Gerald misses you, she said. He'll never say it, but he sits on that front porch and stares at that truck, and I think he knows. I don't know what he knows. Maybe he knows he owes me money. Maybe he knows he owes me more than money. Maybe he's just sitting on the porch because he's 60 years old and tired and doesn't know how to say, I was wrong, because no one ever taught him how. I didn't lose my family. I lost the version of my family that required me to shrink so they could feel tall. I didn't tell you this story so you'd hate my family. They're real people with real pain. My father lost his job and with it, the only identity he'd ever built for himself. Provider, head of household, the man who works doubles. When that was gone, he didn't know who he was anymore. So he held on to the one thing he had left, authority. And authority without contribution turns into control. My mother learned love from a generation that didn't separate it from obligation. In her mind, family means you give everything and you don't ask questions. She wasn't trying to manipulate me. She genuinely believes that's how it's supposed to work. She just never considered that the giving was only flowing one direction. Megan never learned how to stand on her own because she never had to. She was the first child, the pretty one, the one who got the prom dress and the attention. And when life got hard, when the credit cards piled up and the marriage cracked, she reached for the only tool she knew, someone else's wallet. I understand all of that. Understanding is not the same as accepting. You can love someone and still say enough. You can miss someone and still refuse to go back to the version of yourself that made them comfortable. You can leave a door open and still protect what's inside your house. If you're the person in your family who gives and gives and gives, the one they call when they need money but not when they need to listen, I want you to hear me. You're not selfish for setting a boundary. You're not cold for asking to be treated like a person instead of a bank account. You're not the villain. You're surviving. And that's enough. That's my story. I don't know how it ends because I'm still living it. Maybe Gerald will call one day. Maybe he won't. But I know that the version of me who sat at that dinner table, calm, prepared, and done apologizing for existing, that's the version I want to keep being. If this story meant something to you, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you've got your own Sunday dinner moment, The one where you finally stopped shrinking? I'd love to hear it in the comments. There's another story waiting for you in the description. It hit me just as hard. I'll see you there.